Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Towards the end of last year, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, told an energy forum organized in River State that the Tinubu administration was taking steps to align Nigeria with a new era through reforms that promote market efficiency, encourages private investment, and accelerates the modernization of the energy sector. Senator Akume highlighted artificial intelligence, robotics, digital monitoring systems, and renewable innovations as technologies already reshaping the global economy, stressing that Nigeria must position itself at the center of this shift rather than remain on the sidelines. Well, joining us now to have a quick conversation around the interventions needed for a quick and cost-effective materialization of this idea is Lucky Ighoyota, an energy economist. Good morning and welcome back to the morning show. Well, what would you say are the biggest structural weaknesses in Nigeria's energy value chain today, and how can that be addressed?
Yeah, thank you. The energy value chain is so wide, and when we talk about energy security, we're looking at a critical pillar that guarantees national security, economic stability, and long-term economic growth and development. So if we look at the Nigeria energy value chain, the biggest challenge we have has to do with the weak governance system, infrastructural decay, and challenges posed by the energy transition drive of the world. So Nigeria's ability to grapple with some of these challenges will be largely dependent on how pragmatic and how strategic and how Nigeria-centered we deploy our values and our skill set and local technology and ideology to tackle the energy challenge that we are faced with.
And as an economist, how do you reconcile this urgent need for green investment with the realities on ground that oil and gas still accounts for the bulk of Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings?
I think as an energy fellow, I looked at the gas opportunities that we have. It's for us to optimize our investment in the gas sector locally and for export. The NLNG have been very robust, especially when Nigeria suffers some economic challenge under the Buhari regime. Proceeds from the NLNG were used to save the economy, and if we invest in gas so that we can meet up with local supply and also export enough to gain revenue to run our national budget, it will go a long way to divest into the greener energy that we're all talking about. Again, we have been largely dependent on fossil, and fossil is beginning to be experiencing challenges because of the energy mix pursuit of the world. So in pursuing our gas and optimizing the opportunity in our gas sector is going to go a long way to helping us show up some of these challenges.
Has the Petroleum Industry Act, the PIA, meaningfully improved governance, investment, and efficiency in the oil and gas sector, or do we still have some gaps that need to be plugged?
Yes, the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021 has actually offered opportunity for us to scale up our governance structure in the oil and gas sector. But suffice to say that we've not actually implemented it as the drafters had prescribed because of challenges of overlapping around the regulatory overlapping and duplication of roles and confusion all over the place. But we hope that as we move on, everybody, being that it's a new document that everybody is still trying to understand and implement properly, things will shape up as we move on. But if you look at the Hills Community Development Trust there, with the involvement of community stakeholders and local security guards that have been put in place, way of contracting oil assets to local contractors in the Niger Delta, to local companies, that has helped us to optimize our production in the last few years. We hope that some of these policies are maintained and continued with, because they have actually been following up with some non-kinetic approach in tackling oil and gas security. So if we keep up with some of these engagement, I believe we're going to have a sustainable energy ecosystem as we move on.
And how can we move from energy as a social service to energy as a bankable business in rural Nigeria?
It's for us to initiate policies that will be investor friendly. For us to attract investment, we've got to be very clear with our policy. Our policy have got to be solid, have got to be clear, and have got to be followed through. And that's where our institutional strengthening and fixing comes in. We've got to be very holistic in integrating governance, infrastructure, and sustainability effort to be able to attract that into our energy sector. I think if the government is pragmatic enough, I think it's doable.
I'd like us to move our attention to the power sector. How can Nigeria address liquidity challenges in that sector without returning to unattainable subsidies?
The Electricity Act of 2023 have clearly opened the space for the power sector to thrive. States have been given the opportunity to set up their own grids, and that would amount to creating opportunity for private investors to private ownership of grids. And as you notice in the country, a lot of persons are already going off the national grids. People are already clamoring for regional grids, which will give room for small companies to begin to generate energy and sell energy, and that will open the space in the power sector. So in taking advantage of the Electricity Act 2023 is something that we must all plug into. So if we want to advance and grow the power sector, which obviously is quite challenging given the ecosystem is fragile, and with the way the cost of producing the cost of producing power in Nigeria is quite high, and with inherent challenges around energy theft, those are issues that government have got to tackle beyond the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission that's existing. We expect that most states will also come up with their state laws so that they can set up their state electricity regulatory commissions.
And how should our energy policies be reformed to ensure that we're not just an exporter of raw materials, but actually a hub of creation for battery and storage manufacturing?
I think the mining sector have got to be properly structured so that revenues can be generated from it, just like we have in the oil sector. We are a national company, do a liability company now, the NNPCL. I'm also looking at the situation where we have a national mining company that will be like a liability company too, that investors can partner with, so that we can harness some of the opportunities. We have some of the raw minerals here that we can export. And in 2 months ago, at least, we had the first export of solar panel materials that landed in Ghana from Nigeria. So if the right policies are in place and with trust in the system, I think the prospects is really high in that regard.
Now, how can gas infrastructure expansion be financed without increasing public debt?
gas infrastructure can be financed without increasing public debt by way of the expanding the gas master plan to include investors, foreign investors, and that again has to do with our governance system. If there is trust in the system and people are beginning to see that they will get a clear return of their investment in the gas sector, definitely they will buy in and put their money in. So that by that I mean that the political win, because it is governance that's actually the challenge. Like some will say that the geology is not actually our problem. It is governance that is our challenge. So if our governance is right, definitely the investment opportunities will attract FDIs, foreign direct investment, that will not put burden on local people here for increased debt, as you've asked.
And if you were to advise a sovereign wealth fund, for example, what is the single most important red flag that is remaining in our energy regulatory environment, in your opinion?
If I were advise, the single red flag in our energy environment is trust, and if we deploy the right competencies, the right people to man position without political intrusions, I believe we'll definitely get it right.
So what reforms would you say are needed to strengthen regulators like the NERC and NUPRC?
I think the PIA have addressed that. There's a clear provision in the PIA that defines the role, the unique role of the NUPRC and the uniqueness of the NMDPRA. Like you saw when the president set up the board, that is what we have been clamoring for. And now that they have boards, the boards will now play supervisory role to the chief regulators, that is the MDs of the agency, of the authority, and the commission. The NUPRC is the commission, and the NMDPRA is the authority. So with their boards, board members already nominated and ready for work, we believe that the overlapping that we've been experiencing in the last few years will come to an end, and there will be clear policy direction and independence of regulatory agenda in that sector.
And beyond GDP growth, what specific economic indicators should we be looking to, and can we look to watch to know if these reforms are actually reaching the 50% of the people who lack grid access?
Yes, the reforms in place will still boil down to how properly we can secure our hydrocarbon assets, because a gas challenge have been an inherent challenge in the power sector. If we can continue to engage the people, that is the host communities and also the locals, in securing the hydrocarbon asset in the Niger Delta for maximum output, like we experienced in 2025, where we witnessed a recovery year in the oil and gas sector, hitting about 1.6 million barrels per day, with a projection of 1.84 million barrels per day in 2026 budget. In achieving that, I think with what we hear and know, that most of these local oil security companies are already deploying surveillance with using drones, using digital technology, also using data and all of that to as non-kinetic means in handling crude oil theft. I believe if we can heighten production this year, we will have enough gas supply in the power sector that we meet up with some of the inherent challenges that you've talked about.
Energy economist Lucky Ighoyota, thank you so much for joining us on The Morning Show.